Hello everyone, welcome to the Jenkins Infrastructure Weekly Meeting. Today we are the 14th of January 2025. Around the virtual table we have myself, Damien Duportal, Mark White, Stefan Merle, and Kevin Martins. Hello everyone. Okay, let's get started with announcements. First of all, Jenkins weekly releases and releases. Last week we did release 2.492, no problem. Everything went smoothly. This week 2.493 started on time. It's currently being built, and we will have packaging steps in 1 or 2 hours. So we will monitor as usual. And that's all on the weekly releases. No issue, no problem. So good thing. Boring is good. One announcement about discussion that came yesterday during the board meeting about the .io domain, let's say future, in particular ours, the Jenkins.io domain. Will it continue or not? So I've added a link from the blog post. Thanks, Mark, for sharing this from the ICANN blog about the situation. So as I understand, there is an archipelago that was responsible for the IO domain that had a geopolitical change, to summarize it, that led to, hey, maybe they will decide to own the domain as if it was a national one. That could lead on them deleting or reselling. The ICANN is on it. Looks like no decision has been done yet. We should know a bit more in the upcoming month, as it is my understanding. In any case, if they change, the change will take multiple years. So that's the right moment right now to think and follow up, because that will mean clearly if there is an issue that we will have to start thinking about migration, and such migration can take years. Yes, Mark?
Yeah, I read someone else's article summarizing the history of these kinds of transitions. They've happened before, and in every case, ICANN was very, very careful in making the transition, and in one or more of the cases, no change was needed at all for anyone. So there is nothing of concern there. That we just need to listen and not be deaf for a year or more. Right? It would take that level of deafness to miss that kind of a change if they were to choose to make any change.
Absolutely. But that's also a great opportunity to make it explicit and to eventually just restate, hey, do we need to think about changing the domain even if there are no change on the domain name management part? That's also a question that could be to be decided. I've read on the note from yesterday, Mark, that we don't feel the need to have a per country domain, such as Jenkins.de, Jenkins.fr, Jenkins.us. Is my understanding and reading of the notes correct?
Your understanding is correct, and that was a discussed topic in the board meeting. We used email before to be sure that everybody was okay with that, and then just summarized it in the board meeting. And yes, we are not attempting to acquire additional Jenkins domains. If there is someone who violates the trademark and uses a Jenkins domain to do it, it's the trademark violation that we would fight, not the use of a particular domain name.
Yep, makes sense.
Okay.
So it looks like for now, no action except awareness and listening.
Mm-hmm.
Any question on this one? Mark, does it answer the need, the call for
Yes,
action that you had
solved.
for the
Action
board?
item is
Okay,
complete.
cool.
Thanks very much. Yes.
Cool. Yeah, I mean, we still have jenkins-ci.org in case of emergency, even though
Right.
that will be a bit sad to go back.
Right. I and Jenkins.com is not available. It's already another company,
Mm.
and they are a company with the name Jenkins in their company name. So that one's not a thing.
Wh-
Yeah.
just for my culture, is there a reason for not trying the jenkins.org? Is it the same trademark with that company?
I don't know. I didn't even check. And for me, any change is worse than no change.
It's redirecting to stevejenkins.com.
Okay.
Fair. I mean, it's not as if it was a common name, right?
Right, exactly.
Okay. Third point, Azure outage impacting container instances. Please let me edit with the Azure outages.
Hmm.
Yes.
One letter to make such a difference, Damien.
Yep.
That's great.
Yeah, you can hear the pain in the ending. Yes. Okay, so we have an issue. Thanks, Bruno and team, for helping me on this because we were on. Of course, it's the day where both Stefan and I are not really available. Of
Right.
course. I
Of
mean,
course.
first thing, it took more than 22 hours for Azure to detect the error and make it more or less public. That's something that went out of their control. The whole network on US East 2 was misbehaving for almost 3 days on some certain services. Initially, they said it was a zonal issue. So first, no, it wasn't. But in any case, that was the opportunity for us to realize that the Azure container instances are not zonal. There is no such thing as a zone, or if there is one, that's a recent one that is not exposed through the Jenkins plugin that allows creating agent on Azure container instances. The good thing is that the resilience system on Azure, even if we only use one zone in one region, was good enough to prevent the virtual machines and the Kubernetes cluster to fail. So we didn't had any other issues except this particular one. But services without the concept of a zone, which mean historically they have been built in the data center without the required resilience at the electrical power and at the network level. Azure Container instances is part of these services, uh, uh, misbehaved, while the others, such as Kubernetes or their virtual machine service, did act properly. That was resilient, so that's positive thing for Azure. We can say most of their services still were able to handle the load, and in our case and in our usage, we just had a tiny part of the platform that was impacted.
Mhm.
So it wasn't critical. That's the takeaway. It was really annoying, but not critical.
Yes, it's and really annoying is annoying to a certain population of developers, right? It's really annoying. It's only really annoying because Mark Waite was annoyed, right? Or because Mark Waite and a few other people were annoyed, and that happens, right? It was annoying because our some of our most active contributors were affected, and that's not a good thing, right? So yeah.
Um, Is it too soon for me to make jokes about? I mean, if you want to run builds on Windows, you can wait 1 hour or 3 days. That's the same, right? You have the level of patience required.
You need to resist the temptation to make those kind of comments. I appreciate that. I have lived that.
Hopefully, it's
Remember
not
it.
on record.
It's
Wait.
recorded.
Yeah. So
But yeah, that was really annoying. I won't lie. So first, thanks, Mark, for continuing following the sun the issue because I detected the issue just before I had to go,
mhm,
and except changing specifically one parameters per pipeline, there weren't any other issue. So there were, Mark, you had the first tentative on trying to switch the workload from virtual machine to container. The reason I didn't have time to work on this is because initially I thought I could just change the zone like I would do and like we already did in with virtual machine. That would be one parameter and everything would have been gone. No, the only solution would have been if you wanted to continue using ACI to change the region. And that one is not easy because that requires creating new subnets, new roles. Uh, I mean, yeah, not something you can do in 1 or 2 hours.
right.
So I spent and wasted that time on that direction. Now I know. Now we know. I
Well,
should have spent my time on changing on virtual machines, though.
and speaking of wasted time, I spent hours trying to well, I implemented a bad solution, had it reviewed, merged it, and realized it was incomplete and incorrect, and reverted it. So there were several points of wasted time there. That
Yeah.
okay, it was. There's lots to learn
We,
as we go
we
through
will
these.
have a workshop
Ultimately,
about unit tests.
right, yeah,
And
right. I like
I'm
that.
not, yeah, because the unit test would have been a tool by doing TDD to catch this, but the unit test would also underline that the code we use for the build plugin function is complex, overly complex, because
Yes,
you have to choose environments, CPU architecture, GDK version, and many other things. And that one is not properly covered by the
right.
unit tests. But unit tests
Hmm.
could have helped on not having the issue. I think that's an improvement for all of us
Right.
because I've read and approved your pull request. We were on the road and I look, I see that, and I see you mentioned both event high and event high C, and even us, we didn't poked immediately. So it's because it was a complex
Right.
one.
Well, exactly, and it is exactly that. Just as you said, there is excess complexity in build plugin, or there are things interacting in build plugin that we need to find a better way to express the interaction. So a change in one section doesn't have unexpected consequences in another, or undetected consequences in another. Yeah, good
Exactly.
way of saying it. Yep.
So before this one, there were already the online issue, which has been solved. So that at least that's the one of the positive takeaway. So 1 year and a half ago, James Nord and Mark detected that the unlines when using git for the project was not the same between Windows virtual machine and Windows container. We don't build them from the same template. So that could explain why there are two distinct setups. So in the end, we searched you, Mark. I spent some hours. We searched on Windows setup. And in fact, James finally went back to us due to the issue last weekend. And he pinpointed the issue on, oh, it's only a Git system configuration. And I went down that route, and we were explicitly setting it to false, and James said it should have been true. So that explained the explicit difference between the stock Windows server. So now the problem should be solved. It's also solved by one of your pull requests, Mark, that you solved it at the pipeline library. So
Mhm.
now we have at both levels. I think it's important to have both. And I don't mind keeping both. That's if we remove on pipeline library, we should be backed in any case.
Good. Okay.
So that problem is solved now, which means now we have the road to be able to change between both. If we don't rely on the overly complex logic in build plugin. And for that, I have an idea. That's why I say issue to create. The idea will be to write down a runbook that will be a private document, but we will have it in such case. The whole idea will be to say, hey, if we have such incidents, that will be the same between Kubernetes, Linux container, and etc. On short term, at least, we should act on the template definition. We should just remove the labels or disable the cloud on Puppet and instead add the label on the Maven, on the virtual machine, the Maven Windows something. That one would avoid having to tamper with the build plugin logic. Build plugin will keep using the same labels. It's just us on the provider side that say, hey, instead of providing that subset on container, that's one subset of label on container and one subset of label on virtual machine, we do all subsets on virtual machines. That will be the trick. And writing
We
this down,
temporarily change the labels of VM to deal with the ACI
exactly. We
demand.
just extend the collection of labels implemented by the VM templates. Writing it will be, it won't have it's not a direct actionable in case of issues. Someone, human needs to do the transplant hand by hand because making it automatic will mean a lot of work to cover all the combination we could had between Windows, container, different clouds. But writing the runbook that in case of incidents, we recommend you to think about this solution to avoid pondering with the build plugin logic. Just writing it would have helped Mark or me or Hervé or anyone else. What do you think about that proposal?
So I'm trying to, won't that will then require that we simplify the build plugin logic so that it can freely switch between those, right? Because
Oh,
one,
no,
mm,
no. For me, build plugin is a consumer of the Jenkins infra. And the goal is not asking the consumer to change anything.
You
so,
just think
but,
that build plugin is using red label agent. Let's say we call them red, and their red are from ACI for now, but the ACI is killed. So we manually say, okay, now VMs are not called only blue, but they are called blue and red. So when the build plugin will ask for a red agent, it will spawn a VM temporarily as long as the ACI is dead.
right, but won't that then presumes that the new the new agent has the JDK configuration
Mhm.
that will allow it to do that build. So the key problem I introduced by my first pull request, the one we merged, was that um, I tried to use a Windows virtual machine whose default Java was Java 11, and I failed to configure
Mm,
Java 17 or Java 21
That
in build plugin.
that wasn't the problem.
I'm pretty sure it was. So tell me more. What was the
It's
problem?
slightly different. It's
Okay.
because the code path that you changed in the
Hmm.
pipeline library, which is complex, went through saying, okay, if it's that particular case in the combination of all the if then else's,
Hmm.
in that particular cases that ended up on, okay, let's directly set up GDK to be 11. We don't have default GDK set up on the machines, any kind of machines, Windows, Linux, VM
Ah,
container.
okay. So I misinterpreted. It was not that it was relying on a default. It was in fact that it went down the
In
wrong path. Okay,
Exactly, that
thanks.
was a
Got it.
code path. And
Okay,
that's why I said unit test could have coked that one
got it.
because you could have a unit test saying, okay, what if I do these parameters with my code change? Does it end on defining Java home to that direction? But it's only on the, okay, it's because I did not explain well earlier. But yeah, everything was done in the pipeline library, and that was only a matter of Groovy code. So that's why now we have solved the inline issue. The solution, as Stefan explained, is sufficient. We have the same path for both GDK. We did the work last year between containers and virtual machines. So that should be exactly the same. There is still a risk though, because Windows are the Windows container are the one we don't build with Packer image yet. We didn't have the time and the priority to spend on this. So there might be slight differences between both. If you try changing virtual machine to container, it will fail. So that's sure. But container to virtual machine, that's okay because we have at least one GDK or two and a few tools, and everything that exists on the container already exists on the virtual machine.
Okay.
And the goal will be to have the virtual machine having the same system as the container in the future.
Thank you. Thanks very much. Okay, got it.
Second thing is that we plan also to move CI Jenkins IO to AWS. And so as such, ACI will disappear.
Right,
We don't
right.
want to use the ECS service on Amazon. Instead, we will prefer using Kubernetes because it's closer to the Linux agents. That's easier to change the region or to scale down to another zone if there is an issue. And that will be homogeneous between Linux, Windows, and whatever cloud we have. So that's the second reason why we shouldn't automate the fallback in case of such an issue, because that will change in 1 to 3 months. So hence writing a procedure that just help the operator to say to think differently, thinking, okay, maybe that's the part where I should focus right now to fix the issue.
Great. Thank you.
Is that okay and clear for everyone?
Yes, thanks. And thanks for reviewing. I had misinterpreted the first
Mhm.
failure. Thanks.
Thanks because it wasn't clear, and that helps also to write down things that might be more explicit and more clear for everyone. Because in case of outage, we don't want to have to think too much. Okay, the second one is about the monitoring. It's still hard to catch we have the acceptance test that you mentioned, but the acceptance test was not failing all the time. Sometimes it was, yeah, sometimes it was, so I wasn't able to catch a timeout or a failure. It was retrying constantly. It was just stuck. So maybe that means we need a timeout on the monitor.
Hmm. So
You, you,
the job definitely reported an abort due to timeout.
you saw some?
Always, yeah, consistently
Okay.
in that period.
So was it Friday afternoon? Because when I left,
Oh, I
I wasn't
didn't.
able to
The
see.
the
Okay.
the crucial problem I had is I hadn't looked at that job until well after the problem occurred,
Okay.
right? So
So that
so
was
I
maybe in the end. Okay. But
it
still
from
good news. That means
it's
at least if we
it
have a
it
timeout,
was it was timing out, but the problem is no person, no Mark Waite was looking at it, right? And if I'd looked at it Wednesday or Thursday. It's amazing yeah. So it's the flaw there was I just didn't look, right. I was
no,
busy with other things and didn't
no,
even bother
no,
to look.
no worries. And it's not a usual process. So maybe we should look, we can improve slightly. But the problem is also, should we really be alerted in that case? Because the ratio between we have a timeout because there are too much activity on the server versus we don't. And did we had enough timeouts that were following up close to each other to have a correlation that will mean something? I mean, I'm not really interested into being awakened at 4 during the night because there are free bomb builds running, making the acceptance test in timeout, right?
Right. I agreed, and you hit it. So if you want to take a look at, I just pasted into the chat a link to the job, and I'm not sure that it will help us, but what we see
Oh,
there is it can't allocate agents. But it only tests every 4 hours. All right, which is not nearly frequent enough, but in this case would have been frequent. It was certainly more frequent than I was checking, but it
mm,
only it only checks every 4 hours and maybe only 4 times a day or something. Maybe it's only every 8 hours. It's every 8 hours. So it's three
okay.
times a day is all it checks, or maybe four.
Okay. So at least we are sure it's a different view than what I had a Friday
Right.
morning. So that's a good for me. It's positive. That means still the job served the purpose of making it
It,
visible.
yeah, but then it human beings still have to look at it, and that's not ultimately what we want. So
Uh,
yeah,
yes, but in the particular case of last week, Thursday we would have been alerted Thursday, not
right.
Friday. So that means maybe we can act earlier.
Right. And it's a Jenkins job. We could tune it to say, hey, only raise a Datadog alert if it fails 3 times in a row or twice in a row, those
Yeah,
kind of things. Yeah,
the
great.
question is
Should
what
we alert at
information.
all?
So now that we are sure that we have the timeout, that means we can catch it on Datadog because I said it wasn't possible to survey on the issue because from my point of view, yeah, it was still green. It's just the time was extending.
Right.
But yeah, if
That's
you
why
have a if you have a mathematic formula to give here, I mean I'm whole here because clearly I tried a few and no. But
Right.
if
I
it's time outing, that could be a good start. If it fails or it's time outing, let's raise a monitor.
yeah, that was I was thinking about. You also mentioned for another issue, maybe an alert after X event, N event, a center amount of event, but yeah.
Yes, of course. But again, I said no in the context of everything was green, slow
Yeah.
but green. And in
Okay.
that case, you cannot catch anything. Even as a human, it's hard to see it immediately.
right. So
Yeah.
so I think there's more research is possible here, and I think there certainly are things we can improve. I don't know that we need to do it now. Would it help for me to create well, we've actually got a ticket already that talks about this kind of thing. Do we want something specific for this or not really?
For me, yes, because it's distinct than monitoring the private instances.
Okay.
It's not the same. It's not about the implementation, but about the fact monitoring something private means extracting just a small amount of data. So that's more a pull information. In the case, on
Hmm.
that case, it's a push information. That's really the information pushed to Datadog that will act and do something. We have two distinct patterns.
Okay.
So
So
Quick
I'll
questions.
take the action item to create a ticket. So
Cool.
go ahead, Hervé, you had a comment?
Yeah, Jesse mentioned an automatic periodic build of Jenkins Infra plugin. I don't see it in this acceptance test folder. Maybe it's elsewhere.
Oh, yeah,
You said, Damien, that there was one.
so
Mhm.
I think that this check agent availability is actually a superset of what Jesse was proposing. Because
but
if we build Jenkins Infra test, all we test is one path through a plugin build. And
yeah.
what that agent availability checks every label that we use.
Okay,
So
so
Which
there is
mean
this build, okay, but maybe we should add a view to Jenkins,
so
the Jenkins
ju-
IDO to get this build.
just a thing in SRE world, you don't say we want to monitor things. You say who is impacted in case of which kind of issue, and do we want them to know? And acceptance tests and that plugin are allowing us to test two different things to two different sets of people. That's really important. I speak directly. Acceptance test can indirectly help the plugin maintainer. Acceptance test, if it fails, you don't say, hey, plugin maintainer, something is failing. Absolutely not.
Yeah.
Acceptance test is for us. We are the target of the monitoring from acceptance tests. So both of you are right, and that deserve two distinct tickets that say we want to monitor this in order to let these people know if it fails. We don't have to say how, but we have to say
I
what.
see.
The why
Okay.
we all agree is just two different whats. Does it make sense for both of you, Mark and Hervé?
Yeah. So you said that I don't have the help desk issue in your response on you, but having a Datadog monitor on this particular job could be helpful somehow.
That yeah,
Not a
yes,
monitor to
no,
alert,
I don't know.
I
But
don't know,
alert
having
what?
add visibility so when
Visibility of
doing
what?
a quick
That's the
check,
thing. What? Of the
If
time, the status, the frequency?
What
the
you
last
mean,
status,
Damien,
for
is that
example,
the acceptance test is to alert us that there's something wrong on the infra,
On the
while
labels, on the ability for CI
I'm not,
Jenkins IO to schedule labels. Here,
yes,
we have a build that run two of the most used default of the build plugin. So this one is a functional or acceptance test of build plugin in CI Jenkins IO publicly.
yeah,
yes, this one will be useful if we want to trigger automatically a status information about
I
a
would not,
problem building the
yeah.
plugin. That's what you meant?
I don't want to automatically trigger an alert. I just wanted to have it in somewhere more visible where we can check it quickly. Or I'm thinking about what I mentioned to Damien and Stefan, that another clubist team had a view with their main job and allowing to quickly, with just a look at it having checking if everything is green. I don't know if it makes sense or if
It
that
makes sense if you are able to explain what. I think it can be a good idea for certain use cases, but it will be terrible for other. That's why I'm asking the question, Hervé. Do you want to check the time, the status? I think let's
status,
go on the more obvious. If we have a
last status.
Datadog on the status, if that one fails, the
I don't.
monitor. Yep.
Yeah, I'm not intending to trigger an alert or anything, but just having it in a more obvious place than inside the plugin folders that we don't look at every day.
Okay, that's where we start to disagree then.
Yeah, because I want an alert when there is obviously something wrong.
Okay,
And
we
I
also
wasn't
disagree. Okay.
speaking about the alert because it's a
So that
subject I'm
means
not sure about. So just at least having a place.
sorry, Hervé, you were cut at the end of your sentence. We didn't
Yeah,
hear.
because works in the road just below and it's making a lot of sound. So
Thanks for our here. Yeah, so it looks like we have three different ideas of what we should be monitored. That means it's not an obvious task, and that's a task that will take time. For me, Jenkins Infra has always been obvious because that's what we have done during the past 2 years and a half, and that's the thing I initially, right after the acceptance test, went through. It's not written anywhere. So, for instance, we are missing things here, and clearly it's demonstrated that's not a shared knowledge. So that's why it's not that obvious. The problem here is the loopback. If we just move the monitoring to Datadog, still you don't see anything in the case of last week. That's why I understand, Stefan,
I'm
you're
okay
mentioning
with
an alert.
alerting. I just wanted to avoid alert fatigue as you are talking
Absolutely,
from.
and I agree with you. And that's the root cause of the problem. So Datadog monitor is something, but that means we need to test the Datadog, try it, start doing mathematics on, okay, how much repetition do we want, or do we have a matrix and we want to evaluate its average value, or that's the part that need to be studied. Yep. And that's why it takes time, and clearly that's why it has never been done.
Okay,
That
thanks.
But thanks for the pointer. I think that's a good idea, Hervé. Don't get me wrong. That's a good idea to start monitoring this. We have the Datadog insights on CI. I mean, we have suffered enough for keeping Datadog plugin working on this instance. We have destroyed enough data to make it valuable right now for us. So I think it's a good idea, and that could be a first good step in the right direction. Along with the acceptance test. It's just we have to be aware of who do we want to alert of what.
Okay.
Did not see this build failing for last week. But same for acceptance test. So maybe it failed and I did not see it. Yes, that one final the build on Windows. I think
I'm sorry, about this plugin in particular, can we maybe increase build retention to keep more
yeah,
logs to at least a week of logs?
I don't. Oh no yes we can. Sorry, because its plugin is GitHub organization scanning, but build retention can be overridden at the pipeline level. So yes clearly
which which is a good thing also
that's a
for
good
that
idea.
acceptance test, right? It's fairly cheap for us to keep several weeks of that acceptance test results just for our own safety. It's not that's not a lot of data for one job.
The infra absolutely, and the amount of data kept is close to nothing. Good, absolutely good idea, and that's a direct insight on short term. Absolutely. Um, Datadog monitor for both builds. Status, um, build time, and finally see if pattern emerge to trigger alerts. Does it summarize the free actionable that we should be able to start working on?
Yes, and the
Yes.
first step alert would be email, so it's not very invasive. It's not like Datadog.
Oh,
Sorry, the
Datadog monitor doesn't send alerts. That's PagerDuty.
yes, but you can choose with PagerDuty if you want a real PagerDuty or just an email, if I remember correctly.
Yeah, but I don't think you can just send email for some PagerDuty and
Oh,
alert for others.
I
I
thought
I
there
think
was
it's
one
no,
parameter.
I don't think so.
Yeah, we'll see.
Okay, so I think that gives us a good set of actionables here. I'm okay for the other. For the rest, we need to create issues and then, as usual, maybe work on them someday. Are there anything else on that outage?
Thanks for taking the time to discuss.
I will try to write down this summary in the issue before closing it. Just a quick update. I wrote outages because there were an outage yesterday in in Microsoft in some area that led GitHub Action to be down during 5 or 6 hours during the night. Yes, GitHub Actions are also running on Microsoft Azure. Yes,
Well,
at least some
and
part of their workloads.
as far as I can tell, we still have an outage on ACI.
Oh, it's still not working?
Well, yeah, if you look at that job that was in that link, it's timing out,
No.
right? Click the link from the chat session,
Oh, I
and
wanted to check the. We have. Okay, yes, we have
oh,
time.
you're looking at the logs. I see.
Yeah.
Good, very good. You're looking to see, are we getting any allocated? Very good. Okay.
Oh, crap. Okay. Okay, so that I thought it was finished this morning. It wasn't. Everything during noontime. Noontime. That's a lot of error. Okay, so we need. Yo, these are the same errors what we had. Okay, so ACI is still in outage. There is something absolutely not obvious.
Okay. All right.
Okay, so we need to reopen status Jenkins IO. That
So
also mean
I take
we
care
have
of
reached
status.
more than 6 days of outage without any stop. That mean maybe we need to start thinking about, okay, maybe we need an emergency Kubernetes setup here.
Mm,
quick note about this, the status. I don't remember his name, but with the header plugin, we can add a global banner.
Yep, good point. Let me add it here. Plugin, I think that's customize header. Allows thanks because I didn't know that plugin allowed system messages, and that's really useful for propagating as per Hervé explained. The user says, "Hey, I don't see the home page, I see my build page, and I want to see the banner." To have system messages as banner, and that one, yeah, is a good one to add.
great.
Good point, thanks. That's worth an issue, and that one is immediate actionable. Okay, that means we might need to work later today on adding a new Windows node pool on the current Kubernetes cluster and start switching out from ACI to Kubernetes templates.
Even on Azure. So
Yes,
because we knew we were going to have to do that switch out on
exactly.
AWS, so this is okay, interesting.
Um, if that's okay for everyone, can we stay in degraded mode until tomorrow?
Yes,
And tomorrow, around 8 or 9, Stefan, Nervens, and high time, Paris time, we will decide to either we still have the issues, so then we do the operation, or we decide to keep things as they are, crossing fingers.
I think that's staying in degraded condition. I don't see what else we can do. So if
Communicating though, I think the
right,
last item that Hervé installing a new plugin and setting an error message and updating status Jenkins IO are important, and we should do it right after the end of the meeting if it's okay for everyone.
okay,
No objection?
none from me. Thanks.
Okay. Outage not finished. Need to communicate after this meeting. Anything else?
I just launched
Objection?
an unscheduled check agent availability just to see if we've got the issue at this moment.
Cool.
Nothing we need to do in this meeting, but every 8 hours is apparently not frequent enough for that particular check at the moment.
Okay. Okay, so that might be the longest weekly meeting of the year. Are you all okay to continue with the usual timeline? Do we want to split? Mark, you're muted. Sorry.
I'm okay with just extending this meeting. Let's keep going. I think it's worthwhile and it's easier for me than doing a second meeting.
Stefan, Hervé, Kevin, is it okay for you?
Yes, it's okay for me. I'm doing the status reopening.
I
Thanks.
probably won't
Thanks.
stay until the end, but yeah.
Yeah,
No
Hervé, you're
problem.
welcome to drop off when you need to.
Absolutely. Everyone is
And
after
Kevin
three.
likewise, right? This is not a mandatory meeting. We're all here because we're willing.
So let's move on the calendar part. So next weekly, sorry, it's 2.494 that will happen next week. We will have a 2.492.1. So Jeremy Playout will be the release leads, backed by Mark Waite since it's his first time. 5th February 2025, right after the FOSDEM. I will be on the train back to France that day, if I'm not mistaken. Stefan, can you double check that you will be available, just in case?
No,
You won't?
5 February will be in the either train or the plane, not there. That's the Monday,
So
no? Let me
No,
no,
check.
no,
that's
5
the
of February
Wednesday.
is the Wednesday. That's the
Wednesday.
Wednesday.
Oh, Wednesday, so
Yep.
I should be home.
Yeah,
Cool.
Bruno will be out that day, so he's not available. I expect to be back. I will be back and fully available, but I don't have full infra access. But if Stefan, if you're available at that time, you and I can work it together if there's an issue.
I will manage to be almost there after that crazy weekend, but yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, because my understanding, Mark, is that Jeremy will most probably only be able to start action with you being around, which means a bit later in our day we cannot start early like with Chris.
No, actually, I think so. Jeremy, at least if we do the permissions right, he should be able to launch it without me.
Okay.
Because one of the permissions listed is must have VPN access to release.ci.jenkins.io so we can launch the build. If not, we could always have him pair with Stefan, who does we know have access, and Stefan could launch the build. And I think we should take advantage of the fact that you're all in Paris time to launch it at the start of your working day that day. It's just easier for all of us if we don't delay it till the end or middle of your working day.
Is that okay for you, Stefan?
Yes,
Because
Right.
that means given I don't remember my train schedule, but maybe I will be at the breakfast so I can be there. If you don't feel safe about that, you can be back at least asynchronously. And that also mean the afternoon will be chill, because if everything happens during the morning at 2 p.m. Paris time, we
oh,
can
great.
help our Cloud Bees colleagues in the US coast will start and work on this, and we will have all the afternoon to update the Jenkins open infrastructure at our home base.
Perfect.
Okay, good. Sounds like a plan. So we will have to catch Jeremy to prepare the requirements with him.
We should cancel the meeting for the 4th of February
Oh, good point.
because I will probably not work the 4th of February.
Well, and we should cancel it for the 4th of February because we'll have spent hours together all that weekend. There's
Yeah, we will be sick
if
and
we
tired of each other.
that was
Oops.
that was not my message, but yes, okay, also probably.
Yeah, in any case, everyone will be traveling. Okay. Action item, Mark, for you then. Can you delete this from the shared Google agenda because I don't think I have the permissions.
Will do.
And the action item for me will be to remind everyone. We don't have security releases publicly announced, so that's good. We have two upcoming credential expirations. One will be the Azure Service Principal for agents that expire 2 February. Um, I feel like it's a too short deadline to have the credential-less, so the instance identity implemented for such CI. So we will renew it as usual. We still have the TLS certificate for repo Jenkins CI that will expire 2nd February. So Mark, I wrote a long message explaining, summarizing, linking, and thing, and I don't see it in GitHub. So my guess is that I did not click on the comment, and then that was the ACI outage Friday, and then I forgot about it and closed my computer. So we need to re-comment on the issue. The message was no worries. Uh, so I've asked Kosuke, but I don't have answer for the stats. We need an official email in the mailing list to ask Kosuke to renew through his GoDaddy. Until then, we have other solutions. We have Let's Encrypt short term because we will have to renew it every 3 months. However, if we have an emergency, that's a 10 minutes task, and then we can send it to our friends. So I think we will most probably need Let's Encrypt. First, a third one, maybe we could ask Cloudflare. We still need to have a blog post for them to thank them. And that's an opportunity to say, hey, can we use certificate? Can we create certificate as part of the partnership? Because Cloudflare is one of the certificate provider now, as far as I understand. I need to double check we can export the private key though. Yeah, but we have solutions, so we don't have to worry. At least not now, but better if Kosuke can generate a GoDaddy 1 year. Still, Mark, that one is like the statistics. We start to depend a lot on Kosuke,
Mhm.
and I wonder if we couldn't find a service that could help us. Maybe GoDaddy, maybe other.
Right.
So the requirement is the ability to buy a certificate for a domain name that you control that is valid 1 year.
Right.
Azure and AWS does not allow exporting the key. Cloudflare might have the same problem. So I don't know which kind of registrar we could use here.
Yeah. So, and yeah, certainly there are, we have a similar condition every 3 years with the code signing certificate that we use for the MSI file, right? So if we had to accelerate, DigiCert, I'm sure would happily sell us an SSL certificate.
Okay.
Um,
Yep.
and so we could do them if we need to. It's just the every 3 year experience of renewing the code signing certificate for MSI is, it was very painful the last time we did it. The next time it's due is not until 2026.
Good. Or DigiSearch, you said?
DigiCert, DIGICERT, no T. Yeah, exactly.
Okay. If we were to happen to use DigiCert to relieve the burden from KK and limit the risk for the infra, that means we should most probably pay. What will be the process for this one?
So what we did in the past was the Linux Foundation reimbursed me for the purchase of the DigiCert certificate. And I ended up being the carrier, the transporter of the certificate through private channels to be sure that it reached the right places. Uh, I'm sure there's a way to automate that, but I'm not as sure that automating that is high value for us,
Mm.
right? It's so so I'd say let's leave the question open. We've got 19 days before that certificate expires,
Mhm.
so we're, so long as next week we are seeing a solution,
Mm.
I'm fine.
Since we have a fallback in any case in which one does not require KK, I'm inclined to say, oh, I would prefer we spend time right on that milestone on finding a solution
Okay.
and validating it with the board. Uh, Clearly, will someone from the board, you or the infrastructure officer, should have access to an account in DigiCert. We pay once, I believe, or we had a card or whatever. And then we have the ability as a team to have an account, a cloud account in which we can buy certificates.
Ah, okay.
And
All
so
right.
we are autonomous and we relieve KK from that burden.
Okay, so how about then let's you and I spend some time talking about how to, I need to re re I need to extract again my information on DigiCert. I just checked it a month or so ago or a few weeks ago, and let's then do a paired session where we talk about it and see, all right, based on what Mark Waite sees on his DigiCert account, is this viable or no? And if not, what do we do instead?
Yep, exactly.
Great.
The goal is not to create a one bus factor to have one in
Right.
a
That
few
that's
years.
exactly. That's no help whatsoever. That is not the kind of help we want to do. If we're going to touch this thing, let's touch it to reduce the bus factor or to improve the bus factor dramatically.
Exactly.
Great.
Are there other proposal, unclear things to clarify on the certificates? Up, okay. Nothing else on the credential expiration. Stefan, I don't think we have others. We treated all the other that we were aware of.
Nothing that I see.
Stefan, may I ask you to create an issue for this one?
Yes.
We will then see who is going to take it, but issue creation, is that okay for you?
Yes.
Okay. Next major event was them, Jenkins Contributor Summit, blah, 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 in end of the month. We all know. Are there anything to say on the event, Mark? Nothing else for me.
Nothing else for
Just
me.
cool. Just anything else on event calendar?
So Southern California Linux Expo is nothing you need to put here, but just be aware. The location is at the moment an evacuation site for 600 plus people affected by
Yeah,
the fires in
that's
California.
oh,
I assume by the time of the conference it will no longer be an evacuation site, but I don't know that. And so if they had to cancel the conference in favor of providing food, shelter, and facilities for hundreds of people who've been displaced by those California fires, I would not be at all hurt by not attending that conference.
fair. Okay. Is it okay if we move to cloud budgets? No objection? Okay. Uh, Everything is normal. We have the same forecast at 4.4K that will be constant now on Azure CDF account. It's a bit more than last year because, of course, we have the update center running here. That still costs us a bit of bandwidth that we cannot bypass. But that's absolutely okay. Mark, since we have received all the billing, I filled the spreadsheets, and there is an action item from me to contact Mitchell Martino with you in CC to show them how good we were last year on decreasing costs.
Yes,
So
thank
again,
you.
congratulations to everyone in that room. Everyone helped a lot, and we were able to achieve less than 60K. We are at 517. I think I still have the total. Oh, better.
Right.
Okay,
So saved
54.
over $6,000 saved compared to the budget. So over $500 a month saved. So great goal.
That's huge. On the other sponsorship part, we have a slight increase because it's not Christmas or New Year's Eve anymore, so people are building things, especially the ACI container, for instance. I hope we won't pay for them. And yep, so usual we are forecasted at 9.8. That's almost 10 as usual. Are still working on CI Jenkins IO. If outages could stop, that will allow us to perform correctly on migrating to AWS. But yeah, that's how life happen. Digital Ocean, we have increased a bit the forecast. We will see. That will map to the operation we run beginning of December, since we started to use Archive Jenkins IO as a fallback for the new update center. So clearly it has an impact. But yeah, the impact is $20 per month. We have 15K for the full year. So yeah, clearly we have some margin here. On CloudBees, yes, forecast as 500 and something. These leftovers on AWS CloudBees should move to DigitalOcean. That will be the plan. We will discuss on this on the roadmap for FOSDEM, but that's the idea. So we could close this account this year, I hope. I really want this. We have some consumption on the AWS sponsored accounts, but not used by end user yet. These are still the things that Stefan and I and Jay are building. Any question about the cloud billing? Okay. Just point, I will present the whole 2024 cost of every clouds per month and stuff, the spreadsheet basically, during the FOSDEM as part of the Jenkins Infrastructure Officer report. Okay. Now about operational tasks. We had a few support tasks. Two were related to login. We mainly helped user. Thanks, Stefan, for taking care of one of the two. No, the really that helped. Git, so the Git cloning, not converting linens is solved. We have the latest Windows VM agent now have explicitly the same setup as the containers, and it's backed by the Mark's White on pipeline library, so the problem doesn't exist anymore. Around keeping the platform up to date. Okay, I see we have an issue that should have been closed. We updated LTS everywhere. I think we forgot to close it. Should be closable, so we'll correct this right after the meeting. Thanks, Stefan, for taking care of most of these items. We had a bunch of service principal or credential to rotate. Some could be changed to workload identity on the future, such as the CI Jenkins IO agent thing. We said that will be the case with AWS. Some cannot, because the way we use them does not allow separation of concerns or doesn't protect us from, let's say, malicious attacks. We had the TLS certificate for the new update center for one of the components that was going to expire end of the month. The reason is because I forgot one single annotation on the Kubernetes ingresses. I don't know how it come, but yeah. We are, Let's Encrypt is really good because it alerted us. We added the annotation. The certificate was rotated without any operation from us, and that's good to go. There were some issue on the website job builds because of one of the credential expired. So that has been fixed and verified by Stefan. So no problem on that part. The Azure Age surprise disappearance has been fixed. So Mark, in the end, they closed it the 8th instead of the 15. So
Yeah.
we had a bunch of builds failing. And
Yeah.
I mean,
And that's not a shock, right? They went bankrupt. Bankruptcy proceedings can happen at a different
oh,
pace. The entity that was hosting that thing was unable to pay the bills, and
okay.
that when you can't pay the bills, people stop
Yeah,
providing you services, right? That's
makes sense.
And I want
Yep,
to add a little something for
yep.
AN that was part of the meeting last week and wanted to provide some help on that. We're sorry, but we had to take over because the deadline was uh, um, before the dead, so no way to wait for you, AIM. But we got tons of stuff for you. Damien, you're muted.
Sorry, I was muted. My bad. Thanks, Stefan. So yes, basic. Thanks for reminding us. So sorry, Ian. The change was easy. We changed from, hey, let's download the binary, and instead let's install the package with the recommended method. Please note that the installation method of downloading binary has been marked as not recommended since the 9th January. Coincidentally. But yeah, now we have fixed everything. Thanks, Mark, for taking care of pointing all the thing. We did three of the four elements you mentioned. One was an archive repository. Good for us. Less work. I'm happy with that outcome. Nothing else, Stefan, on this one?
No, thank you to have correctly reviewed my pull request that was with tons of mistakes.
No problem. So everything should be in production or almost there, and our builds are now have stopped failing. So that's why we can consider that issue closed. Any question? Okay, we had two closed as not planned issue. Yes, that user was either forbidding request to go to the mirror or blocked by the mirror. Yes, but no actionable for us here. And a username issue, we don't have to spend time on this. Now, work in progress. Support level, we still have the incident running. So as we said, still an ACI outage. Of course, it's not written anywhere on Microsoft, but we create container in Microsoft and it's just in pending state. And the error message is weird. The container did not reach the right state. Dot. We are really happy with this one.
I really hope they don't bill us for that.
Yeah, I really hope as well. I would be mad if I would be a company, but yeah. So that means if still the case tomorrow, Wednesday 15, then emergency Kubernetes Windows setup. Right now, let's communicate outage is still there to users.
I did merge the pull request for the status.
Thanks, Stefan. Is it good for everyone? Okay, spend enough time on this one. Mark, I will start a mailing thread about the whole Atlassian public thing. Right now on Artifactory, we have that mirror Atlassian Maven public that has been created as part of the outbound bandwidth decrease project. And it's monitoring everything from Atlassian Maven public. And that's the one that caused the dependency problem because it's part of the aggregated. My proposal is to start, it's still a wide one. I know people like Basil or James will say it's too wide, but I propose we start by only mirroring that subtree that will solve that issue and the other one created by Alex at least right now. That might have impact on the developers though. There might be some dependence, like if we still had crowd 2 plugin, that one was using dependency from that one that did not exist on the Maven Central and that wasn't under the com.atlassian tree. Which means if we see other plugin with that behavior, we might have to add 1, 2, 3, 4 additional subtrees. But okay, it's more about communication before doing it widely.
Right. I think you've got the right approach. That narrower tree, and if we need to refine the definition of how narrow that is, that's great. It just needs lots of testing then to decide, or lots
Exactly.
of searching through source code to see, okay, which packages are used from where.
Which means maybe we could start looking at the tools between the BOM, SBOM system, but also I'm sure there are tools in GitHub that could help on that part because we have Dependabot able to monitor each of the POM XML of each plugins and building the whole tree. So if anyone hear about a tool that could help us on the infra to know, okay, we are searching for com.atlassian patterns on the Maven dependency trees to find exactly the exhaustive list. SBOM will be the solution here, but we don't have it cross plugins and cross dependency. But yeah, any tools here could help ponder and avoid searching. So yes, I have to email to send for developer and then set up a timeline. Just to know, it's not a blocker. As we wrote on the issue, the dependency are outdated because it's the time for Atlassian to update the dependency on their mirror, and then it's updated immediately on ours. So usually just add 1 or 2 days of latency when a new dependency is needed for the developers. So it's not a blocker, it's an annoyance and a slowdown, but not a blocker. We still have a request by Alex Earl about creating a WinP a job on release CI. However, there is discussion that should happen here because Tim mentioned an issue by Basil from a few months ago about, hey, what about putting the code signing certificate on some repositories such as WinP? That means keep releasing using the GitHub Actions CD process. Can we take the risk of adding the security certificates to that area? That gives more autonomy to the maintainer of WinP, especially external contributor, versus moving the deployment out of GitHub Actions CD system and move it to release CI, and then decide what will be the new deployment workflow, release lifecycle, etc., etc. I'm not sure how the decision should be taken here. At first look, we could do what Basil proposed on this one. That means the request by Alex Earl could be dismissed. Do you think, Mark, it would be worth discussing that on at the FOSDEM since we will have everyone around the table for such an issue?
Yes, I like that as a discussion location to say, hey, shall we use Windows Sign Tool from a GitHub action, or stay with the current only do it from release.ci.jenkins.io? Yeah, good topic for discussion there. And we've got
Actually,
the security people in the same room. So it feels like a really positive place to do it.
or switch the deployment method to release.ci.
Right? Which of course
Proposal.
then means the maintainers don't get to see it, and that's more difficult for the maintainers.
The summit be a good place to discuss and decide. Which means I will remove it from this milestone and move it to the first day milestone and add it as a topic as part. And I will check with Bruno and Alisa when will be the best moment in the day to underline this one. Is that okay?
Bruno's current agenda proposal has 2 1-hour breakout sessions for the Jenkins Infra team.
Cool.
One of them runs concurrent with a Jenkins security breakout, and the other one runs concurrent with a Jenkins 3 discussion. So we'll have to borrow from people from one of those 2 places for this discussion.
Okay. That could also be a release, a SIG release session because it's a cross-domain part. It's not only infra, it's also a bit of security,
Yeah,
a bit of release lifecycle, right? And
when
platform.
it could be. You're certainly right. When Bruno and I discussed which topics should be big enough to be a breakout, release didn't seem to have enough topics to justify a full breakout. And so I would rather just pull it into the infra topic
Yep,
because
true.
clearly infra has enough for 2 breakout sessions and more.
It's just that we should advertise it as also release, just to be sure that we
Yes,
have the right person here, especially if we have to predate other discussions.
correct. Good.
Thanks, Mark. The issue with Gatsby is on stale, and it will stale. Go back to the backlog. We don't have time to work on this one, sorry. That one, same as Artifactory. We need to implement the Atlassian part, and that one should be solved. Infrastat, no news from KK. Mark, can I ask you to also try to ping KK so it will increase the request in his priority list?
Yes.
Thanks. About the key platform up to date, we have an update of the Datadog plugin on CI Jenkins IO to make. So I see they released 9.0.1 during the weekend, which means something was wrong and we were good to wait a bit. That's just an operation to be announced. So we need to back up the data, install the plugin, and watch for the changes. I propose that we delay this one of at least 1 week given the ACI outage. I don't want to have a user feeling CI is more and more broken. What do you think?
Yes, delay feels very reasonable. We've got other things that are much higher priority.
Oh, it's not about the overload, that's a quick one. It's just about the user. They are already slowed down on CI Jenkins IO by the ACI thing. I will rather avoid any bad surprise. Three issues that are for J. So that's an internal dependency update automation. J, alas, is healed, so he wasn't able to close. One is sent a pull request. We made a review that will be finished soon, so we will keep the three of them inside. Cluster add-on port, he found solution and is currently improving his manifest, so we are in refinement phase. This one, though, will need more work, and he asked for help, and we will need Stefan and I to continue because there are no way to have an AWS command that gets you the latest MEI release version that follow a certain pattern in one shot. So there might be other solution. Jay has one that gets two different information and concatenate them. That should be good enough. And Stefan and I weren't able to use what Amazon recommends. They say, hey, specify the MEI ID, which is different. That's not the same string, except that we don't see any way to say create a Kubernetes cluster in EKS with that ID. At least with the tooling we have right now, we weren't able. They say select line and MEI release version, but the attribute MEI ID wasn't found for the node group. So maybe we were too superficial in our documentation look, but that doesn't look like an easy one. Need work from Esmer before handing over to Jay. The two other will be next step for Jay when he's back and safe. We discussed about the SSL certificate earlier. So that's all for the up-to-date issues. We still have two open items on the update center area. We still have to decommission the old update Jenkins IO website from the current virtual machine. I thought I could have time for this before Christmas, but I didn't. And we still have a edge case that need to be solved, but that's a minor one. So right now we'll see if we have bonus time on this one. This has been deprioritized compared to outage on CI Jenkins IO to AWS. So both of them are in stale status. Finally, on CI Jenkins IO, we're working on it. Stefan is fighting with EKS and permissions. Right now, we are trying to avoid maintaining a credential to connect to EKS from CI Jenkins IO Kubernetes plugin. Almost there. Next step will be the private link to have the virtual machine agent being able to reach ACP through the private network. These are the two next steps. And on the ephemeral VM agent, we are fighting with Windows. It works with SSH, but it's slow. It takes 6 to 7 minutes to have an agent, a virtual machine agent. And right now, our tentative to use WinRM and let's say the EC2 plugin recommended method to start Windows agent, we are not able to make it work. It might be our network, it might be security groups, it might be EC2 plugin being buggy as hell, a bit of all. I'm working with colleagues at CloudBees that made some discoveries. That one mark for information, still on Windows. It prevents us to try the V2 SDK plugin.
Okay, no, I was not focused nearly enough. You just said
No problem.
something very important to me, so now I'm going to have to make you go back and say more again. All right, so there is a problem that will prevent you from using the V2 plugin,
Yeah,
the Java SDK V2 for AWS.
yeah. Because the
Okay.
risk here is that we don't have something which is good enough on Windows. So we can try a word case which is um, Windows using OpenSSH is not expected by the plugin. It's a hold hack where you say, oh, I could have, but the plugin consider the agent to be a Unix. It's used the Unix launcher code path.
Okay, so we've got, and the Azure VM Agents doesn't have the same problem.
Exactly,
It allows
exactly,
us to launch a Windows virtual machine providing OpenSSH.
exactly.
Okay, so
There might
uh,
be some work, and we are trying to start using WinRM and WinSCP, which is the EC2 plugin recommended technique. We are
okay,
facing issue, and we need to fix this one or to understand it better and make it work before switching to the V2.
Okay.
Otherwise, if switching to the V2 right now and something breaks, we won't be able to tell if it's a bug on the new V2
Right.
SDK method or if it's because of our setup being wrong.
Okay. Yeah. And if we need to beg for Basil's help or ask for Basil's help to possibly extend that plugin, that's another possible alternative. He's certainly not AWS API expert, but he's a very skilled developer and is willing to do development work if we need it. So
Mhm.
um, keep
Yes,
us in the
but we
loop
need
and
we need first to fix or ensure that our setup is fixed.
right.
We need to have enough proof to tell Basil we saw a bug or an unwanted
Right.
behavior here.
Absolutely.
I don't
Yeah.
want to waste his time just because we forgot to open a port on the firewall. That
Right,
would be
right.
clearly a waste.
And I appreciate that, and he appreciates that. Very good.
Yeah, I bet. So that's all on CI Jenkins IO. That's a lot, and that's all.
Great.
On the monitoring part for the private instances, so Jay has started going further on the pipeline library, and he started to write a prototype of the incoming new version. So Jay did started a prototype for that will be a report bid or something. I don't remember the name. I mean, the name is a detail that can be changed at the end. But the goal will be to have a function to call at the end of the pipeline that will write something to report Jenkins IO that would allow Jay again or the team to have Datadog monitor on these files, at least to check hey, if we don't have a timestamp updated before we reach that amount of time, like we check the update center every 10 minutes and the RPU every 3 hours. And if we don't see an update, then we start to have the monitor yellow. Second alert, we send a pager duty for sure. That one is easy because everyone agrees on what are the frequency. So for each job, we have a frequency. We can have alert after two failures, and that's okay. That's all for the work in progress. In the new issues, as you mentioned, Mark, we will need to add Jeremy Playout as Jenkins LTS release lead. So that means creating account with him, VPN access, etc. Is that correct?
Yes, that is correct. He needs, and in the help desk ticket, I think I placed the link to the document that describes all the permissions needed.
Cool.
But I asked for explicitly the two that require an action by the infra team and probably by a Jenkins CI org admin. So those two, Jeremy himself will submit the request to get VPN access, right? Because that comes as a pull request to the infra team, not as you having to take some, as the infra team taking some action.
Yep. So he drives, and we just have to be listening and efficient. Cool. External users struggling to submit stories, yeah, stale. So that way it's in triage, and we cannot work on this. Maven central artifact being downloaded from repo Jenkins. We need to double check. I thought there were only two items, artifactory metadata. Oh, that's okay. Still the same as this one. So we have three. Same as, okay. ECR right now it's stale because we need the private link I mentioned earlier inside AWS. Same thing. So maybe this one
It's a new priority.
maybe will be done. Will crap. Will be done partially in Azure if ACI outage continues. Move ephemeral Linux container to AWS. We are waiting for the other. Still blocked. That should be an easy one for Stefan. He already created the required permission. No. Oh, no. I messed up last week. Sorry. Started to work on it. That's literally what Stefan is doing right now. And I forgot to add it to the milestone, so my bad. For the rest, it's about JDK21 runtime and account app. The first block is more a matter of taking time, and the second one will be part of the breakout session at the FOSDEM. Do we have new issues that has been written while we were speaking? No, we don't. So that's okay. We can close. Sorry, we discussed a lot about that outage, but that was needed. Are there other topics you want to mention, question you want to ask? Nope. Okay, so thanks for being patient enough for this session that was really long. See you next week. For people watching us, I'm stopping screen share right now.
Thank you.
Bye bye.